How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. Today, we're going to be talking with Rachel Olson. She is a professional triathlete from the Boulder, Colorado area. She got her start in swimming when she was just 4 years old and did things like water polo and cross country, and became a professional triathlete in 2018. And she's had quite the road, a difficult one with a lot of family trauma that's been going on. You'll hear some very real and raw emotions in this episode. So I just want to say in advance, thank you so much to Rachel for not only coming on, as I say often, but coming on and sharing from a deep place of vulnerability. And it really enriched the last hour and change of my life and has impacted it for the long term as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Rachel Olson. Cool. Well, hey, thanks for jumping on. Really appreciate it. I think I met
Thanks
you
for
in
having me.
person once, right? We were in Tucson. I think you were
Yeah,
doing like do you
at the
usually
swim.
go there like for the winters?
Um, so we did in 2021, and then I hadn't been back until this year.
Okay.
Just because like Andre likes to go. Since Sam lives there full time,
Hmm.
they're like best friends, and so for him to go makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
then for me, sometimes it makes sense or sometimes it doesn't. And yeah, it just kind of depends, but
Yeah. Do you think
it's
you'll?
nice winter training.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I got to go out there for work, so I told them if they're going to send me out there for
Yeah.
work, then I get 7 to 10 days to just kind of mess around. So it was only an hour and a half away, and
Yeah.
it really worked out. It's super fun. Such a cool vibe, especially
That's
aqua
awesome.
bears and all the stuff you guys are doing. It's super fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, this year I feel like there's still a lot of up in the air about how like off-season training will look, and
Sure.
I have no idea. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm sure Andre will go at some point,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
even if it's a couple weeks. I don't know.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about just what you got going on in life right now. Like I know you had a full not too long ago. What's life looking like for you right now?
A lot of training and a lot of actually successful training.
Good. That's
Like,
awesome.
yeah. Because like I'm sure we'll talk about it, but like the past couple of years have been like really up and down about like training and racing and
Hmm.
kind of like family life stress. And so this has been kind of one of the first times that I've been able to string together a big block. Like I thought I was doing pretty good, like kind of this off season leading into the Ironman, and
Hmm.
I like when I look back at it, it wasn't as quite as strong as I think it was. So just decided to like not race for a while. And so I haven't raced since, yeah, I mean it was like mid-April.
Yeah.
Um and just trained, and but I am doing Maine 70.3, and it's like what 10 days, not
Yeah.
even 10 days now.
Yeah. A week from Sunday or
um
Saturday.
Yeah, and then I'll go over to Europe to do a training camp, and then
Cool.
because Andre's racing Frankfurt, and then I'll most likely do ZLMZ. So that's like September 1st, maybe.
Hmm.
And then yeah, we'll see from there.
Yeah.
I might try to talk to Belinda at Challenge and see about doing some races if there's opportunity there, and kind of go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Good deal.
So
Well, there's a lot to plan. I know that you guys, it's always
yeah,
interesting to talk to everybody's just plans for the year. It seems like some people are more like, oh, put my name on everything. And other people are like, well, I'm not sure how I'm feeling. We'll see how it goes. But yeah,
yeah,
it's a very almost like vagabond lifestyle to do what you
yeah.
guys do.
Yeah, and like I mean, it's with how quickly races are filling up. Like you
Mm.
have to kind of put your name on some stuff. Like I had put my name on Boulder and Mont Tremblant because I was like, well, maybe I'll race them, but maybe not. But like I need to have it as an option.
Right.
Um, and so just because like if you wait too long, you're like, okay, actually, I do think I'm ready to race. Then then it's closed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
screwed.
Yeah. It's super crazy right now, I
Yeah.
guess, with the different pro series and stuff going on. But I'm wondering if they're ever going to put, like, and when I say they, like the greater organizing bodies, a cap on how many
Yeah.
professionals you can have in a field per year, because it seems like it's going to be pretty hard,
Yeah.
like you're saying, to get into races, and unless more races just start springing up like crazy that have pro fields and prize purses and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just, I mean, it's super hard. Even like I had signed up for ZLMZ and like they send emails. It's like, oh, now it's on a wait list. Like, so if you're not going to race, pull your name off and we're going to pull somebody from a wait list.
Mm.
So, and I don't really, I think like right now, their only cap is how many race ranger units they have,
Oh,
which is weird.
yeah.
So
I have to tell the
it's
guys who are
not
race
like, I don't
ranger to
even know what that
get
number
more of
is.
them. Yeah, I feel like it's probably close to
Yeah, I don't
100.
know.
Yeah.
I think so. It might be more though, because I think there was between men and women, even at like Texas and everything. I think there was more than 100.
Yeah,
I
there's
don't
like
know.
80 per field or something, it seemed like. I don't remember. I've
Yeah.
been hearing startless numbers. I know it's been absolutely high on all of these races. But we'll have to reach out to I'm blanking on his name, Race Ranger. I had him on here, and I feel James.
I know.
James Elver, have to tell him
Yeah, I
to
met
up
him
it.
at. I know.
Yeah.
Or don't. It's fine.
Yeah.
At least for the men. Oh my god.
Yeah.
They have so many people on their lists.
Yeah,
Like,
it's wild.
it's nuts.
Well, so there's so many things I want to ask. We'll definitely get into the triathlon stuff. But the first question I want to open up with is one that I'd like to hear from you and your perspective. Who is Rachel?
So it's funny because I actually have to thank you a little bit for this. Like, I obviously listen to your podcast, and I know that you asked this question. And after Ironman Texas, I was having a really hard time. Like, I was just really unhappy. And I was like, I do love this sport, right? Like, why am I doing this? And I feel like sometimes we like try to figure out, oh, why are we doing triathlon? Like, you have to find your why. And I kept going through that, and I was like, actually, you know, I think I've kind of lost me. And I had been like, listen, we had scheduled this podcast like, you know, a month ago or something. And I was like, actually, you know what? Maybe it's not like why I'm doing triathlon. It's like, let me get back to actually who I am. And that's when I'll know, like, that's when I'll find that joy again. And so I was like, oh, now I have a chance to like remember who I really am. And like the person that I am, I feel like, you know, we'll probably get into it, but I've had a lot of personal things happen in my life. And I think I've pushed maybe just some of my personality traits, like down to kind of people please or just to figure out life. And so actually I was like, okay, let me figure out again who I am. Like, I am like outgoing. I am quirky, which is just another way to say that I'm probably a little bit weird. Like, I think I'm funny. People probably don't think I'm funny. I am spontaneous. I like to just go do things. And I just like enjoy, I just generally enjoy doing life and being out there. And I think I've sat myself a little in a corner. I'm a daughter and a sister, and I think I care too much, which, you know, can sometimes be bad, but my mom always reminds me that I think it's a good thing. So that's me in a nutshell. But again, I have to thank you for bringing that back out of me in a way.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. That's super meaningful. Just a quick side note, like doing this will probably be episode 75 or something like that now. And getting to talk to so many, it is crazy. Talking to so many different people and hearing their stories has opened up a greater appreciation for me internally to just know that it's okay to be different and to have a different story and to really embrace that. Because, triathlon, we all do kind of the same thing, but being able to take a step back and really explore like who we are and why we're who we are because of what we've experienced in the past. Like you said, you've had some hard stuff that you've gone through. That's super important to remember because we're all unique and we all
Yeah.
got somewhere we're trying to get to, and no path looks the same as another. So, yeah, I really do thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that, though. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you.
yeah. So, let me ask you this question then. Why do you think in this sport or any sport, I think this can be attributed to many different facets of life. Why do you think that we lose sight of who we are in the pursuit of what we're doing?
I think it's sorry, my cat's feet are just little.
That's all good.
Um, like it's I think we just get so absorbed in maybe an end goal sometimes, or that, our journey has to look one way or another. And like you said, like each of our journeys are all different. And I think social media does play a factor in it. It's like, oh, well, should I be acting like this or should I be doing something like that? Or even people, in training circles, like it's some person does training very differently than other people, like I might be singing and dancing on a trainer while Andre is like super focused. And I think we kind of are always like looking like, oh, well, should I be doing it like that? Like, should I be acting like this? And I think at the end of the day, it's just how you need to do you. Like, but we get so caught up in, okay, these people must be super serious. Like, I need to be super serious or I need to be this way. And I think it's so easy to get caught up in just how somebody else might be doing something, or like, well, this is the way I think it should go, instead of being just really true to yourself and really looking inside and seeing like the most successful I will be is actually doing, being true to my heart
Hmm.
and going about it that way. And yeah, I think it's just so easy to get caught up in sport and day to day, like, even like swimming today, I was like having a hard time. And it's like, well, but like in the grand scheme of things, like, is it really that bad? Like, no, like actually, this is just part of it. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think but it's so easy to let it go and only think about the numbers and not yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always interesting to me. Anytime I start something new, we can use triathlon as an example, but in the beginning, there's this level of naivete where you feel like you can take on the world and be the best at anything. And, you go into it blindly with this confidence and charisma is not the right word, but you can see it on people's faces when they're new in something. Like they're very much into it. And yeah, like you said, the more you get into it and you start to find success, and because of that law of diminishing returns, I think that has a part to play in it too. Because for me, I feel like, oh, I should
Yeah.
be. We always are thinking, oh, I should be here or oh, I should be there. But yeah, the episode with Simon Whitfield just released, and in the conversation with him, he really brought around this idea of kind of being where you are in your skin, being present. Mindfulness, I think, is something that's a really big buzzword
Yeah.
right now, but to really do that and appreciate each step in front of the other rather than focusing on, oh, I got to go hit these paces. Oh, I got to hit these power numbers. Oh, I got to finish on this piece of the podium, which makes it tough when you're a professional because that is part of the job. That's part of the MO. But yeah, it's a battle. And I think that the more we talk about it, hopefully more people will kind of find the juju for, oh yeah, I can be here, I can be present. What made your swim hard this morning?
Yeah. Oh, I had a really big day yesterday, like a really hard bike ride and then a really hard run that was also long. And so of course just general fatigue. I did end up, turning it around decently well, but it was one of those where, I mean, I grew up swimming. I swam collegiately, so I spent too many hours in the pool. And it honestly is just sometimes that thing in the water that it's like you try to push even harder and you go slower. And you're like, oh my, come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think sometimes you have to like also again like let it go a little bit and not force it so much, and then it'll come back around. So that's what I did and it got better. But yeah, at first it was like, I'm pushing harder and going slower.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
So I had to let it go for a minute. and let it come back to me. But also sometimes it's just like you swim through peanut butter and it's like there's nothing else you can do. You
Yeah.
just have to accept it.
Yeah, accept it, go a little slower, make it a little bit more relaxed. So,
Yeah.
so let me ask you this. Swimming, like it's been a part of your life since I believe you were 4 years old. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Why did you get in the pool for the
Yeah.
first time?
Um, well, my mom signed me up for summer league swimming,
Okay.
and I was like younger than everybody else, but I mean, we were there, and I think I had just been generally interested in the water. Even when I was like 2 and 3, I would just
Mm.
like, I mean, there was a time we were at my aunt's house, I was maybe 3, and I just would try to like go into the hot tub. I would just walk into the hot tub and like sink to the bottom. I just had a fascination with water. I don't know. I wanted to be in it. And so she signed me up for summer league, well, because my sister is 2 years older than me. And so she was getting into it. And um, like, yeah, I was 4 years old and she plopped me in the pool. Apparently, I cried the entire way, but I was the only like 6 and under that swam the whole length of the pool without stopping. I just cried the whole way.
Wow. That's
And it went from there, I guess.
yeah. Do you remember when you first started to understand enough about swimming where you're like, oh, I think I'm starting to get a hang of this and I can feel the water, as they say.
Oh man, like even from like a young age, like anywhere from 6 to 8, I was already doing like private swim lessons in our backyard. Like we had a pool, like doing like start lessons and stroke lessons and um yeah, like I said, that started as young as like 6 to 8. And even then we were like competing in our summer league for kind of at like the regional level and being the best in that little group. And um then realizing that there's like a whole club world outside of that. And so I joined the club team when I was, I think, 10. And after the first year I actually had to quit the summer league program because it was like serious time. The summer was for long course now
Mm.
instead. And um but it took, I mean, I am 5'2", and if you see swimmers, like I would be on the blocks and it'd be like tall, 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 tall,
Yeah.
tall, tall. So I spent much of my time, I mean, from 6 years old to 20 years old, doing private stroke lessons just to understand the feel, correcting all the little things, because I had a lot of friends that were just super talented, but they were, 5'8", and
Yeah.
they had a lot more at their disposal. So I am grateful for that because I feel like I just learned a lot more for myself, but also now I really like to help teach, stroke lessons
Mm.
and how to swim, how to feel for it. So I mean, I don't really know how early I got it, but I just very remember like being in our backyard when I was younger, just enjoying doing these swim lessons that like maybe some kids would not really like because is quite serious.
Yeah.
But I mean, I really enjoyed it. So
That's awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting too with a lot of people I've talked to who've had kind of a swimming background. They'll usually get to either high school, college, in and around there, and then they just decide I'm never doing this again, type of a thing. Did you have
Oh
a
yeah.
similar experience?
So actually halfway through high school, I was in a pretty intense club program, and also in like they call it the Gulf region in Texas, and kind of like the surrounding area was, we had a pretty high level like swim groups in the area. And so it was a very intense program, a lot of yardage, and that day we would call it garbage yardage. Um, and so it was a lot, I was doing, starting in middle school, I was doing 5:45 a.m. practices, doing double days. And yeah, that's really early to start that kind of strict programming. And so now I can look back and understand why it happened to me. But back then it was like, oh, once young women hit kind of that 16, 17-year-old range, there's a chance they might hit a plateau and not improve. And it was just kind of like, oh, maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. Now I know that the higher chance of it happens is because you're being overtrained at this level and,
Hmm.
we're developing. And so I did hit a huge plateau, probably my sophomore to junior year of high school. Yeah. And I just stopped getting better. And a lot of my friends around me just kept getting better.
Hmm.
And I went from being in like a good lane at the club practice to the end lane. The end lane is where you go to die. That's where you go to be forgotten. You don't
Hmm.
get a lot of attention. It's not very fun. And I just wasn't getting better. And at the time, it's just like, oh, yeah, you've just hit the plateau. And like, we didn't really know why. And so I quit that club team and I joined a fun club team. And that was, I almost quit completely.
Well,
And my mom convinced me to stay and to do a different club. And so I did for about a year and then ended up going back to that club for my senior year. All the while I um, did stay like high school swimming and water polo, and so I still kept doing that. But yeah, that was and it was really hard because I mean it's kind of a bit of a mean girl phase in high
hmm.
school, and so the club girls that were a lot faster than me, like I just kind of got left by the wayside, and I didn't really feel like I had those friends anymore.
Hmm.
And so I was like, I really don't care to do this anymore. But finally, got my feet again, enjoyed it again. I think that's the biggest thing with swimmers is that I think, I mean, I guess like we talked about at the beginning, like sometimes you forget why you even are there or why you keep showing up. And yeah, swimming, you just spend a lot of time by yourself. And I was this close to not touching it again, but stuck with it. So
Yeah. So you said your mom like really encouraged you to keep going. Um, that mentality. I mean, if your mom was putting you in swimming at 4 years old, like she obviously believed in what you could do, and she saw the value in being able to do a sport even at that young age and developing a skill. So, talk to me a little bit about that relationship with you and your mom, because she obviously holds a pretty deep place in your heart for how you view yourself.
yeah, and I think like, I mean, maybe I didn't understand it when I was younger, and like I said, and I'll probably get emotional about it, but we've had a lot of rough years with her health, and
Hmm.
um, I think going to through therapy through all this actually like I realized that she wanted a better future for me.
Hmm.
Um, but also understood that the women of our family, especially her side, we are very stubborn and
Sure.
hard-headed, and I think she knew like I had what it takes to really do something, and I don't think she could. I think she knew that I wouldn't be happy if I wasn't doing that.
Hmm.
So yeah, like she has been really crucial for me.
Yeah.
All right.
You don't have to say sorry. I think it's a beautiful thing whenever I've seen too many of my friends and people who aren't my friends who aren't able to have an emotional reaction when they talk about their parents. Like I talked with Luke McKenzie not long ago, and he was
Yeah.
recounting just the place that his dad held in his life. And obviously your mom is a huge piece of who you are. And
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what she's going through. And you feel free to talk about it if you want to, but um, yeah, whenever somebody is touched with something that we have no control over and it affects their quality of life, that's super hard. But I think that makes you, even though it seems like you're going through it in a healthful way, like seeking therapy and going through that, and like that,
Yeah.
these hard times, they're tempered, like making a beautiful sword. You're in the fire longer, the harder, and you'll be able
Yeah.
to cut through more. So, but in the moment, man, it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I completely understand like a perspective from like Gustav Eden.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is so like I don't know how he performed at the level that he did while his mom was even sick. It's like
Yeah.
it's those kinds of things that they do eat away at you quite heavily, um and it's not something that I've like talked in depth about, which I think I did it because I never wanted my mom to feel like she was a burden on my
Mm.
life, especially now. And like it's not like that at all. It's just that I care a lot.
Yeah.
I am overly emotional, and that is one of my strengths, but so starting in like 2020, she was starting to lose her vision. She has dry macular degeneration.
Oh my goodness.
So that was the first thing. And then in 2021, I was also suffering through a knee injury, about to have surgery. And I remember at my one of my last few races, she found out she had breast cancer.
Oh my word.
Um, and her youngest sister died of breast cancer. Um, Her other sister had breast cancer as well, but ended up committing suicide.
Wow.
And so that was really hard for us to capture. And that was towards the end of 2021 that we found out. And thankfully, it hadn't spread anywhere, but we didn't realize how bad her general health was at the time. And that's when we realized, she wouldn't be able to do like a reconstructive surgery or anything. So she had a full double mastectomy. And
Hmm.
then, that was good. Cancer is gone, but she does have cirrhosis of the liver,
Oh
and
my goodness.
she can't even be eligible to get a liver transplant until she would be 5 years cancer free. And so it has just been, I mean, we spent actually like all of 2022 almost in and out of hospitals. And
Hmm.
that's when I kind of I had started racing. I raced really well at Mont Tremblant, and then I didn't really race much after that just because I was home a lot. We were trying to figure out her health, and I took a step back because I think at the time I needed to. And, you know, I know that I haven't talked about it because I didn't want her to feel like she was the burden. She's not the burden.
Yeah.
It's me trying to figure out how I fit into everything. How do I help, and how do I also learn how to help myself? And so, yeah, that's when I started the therapy to kind of understand how your relationship between your parent is changing,
Hmm.
and understanding that, it is totally different. And now is yeah, it's just incredibly hard to go from, having a very like healthy, active parent to what she is dealing with now. And it's really hard to witness. And
Yeah.
I'm she always tells me, Rachel, don't worry about me, don't worry about me. My dad says, don't worry, like I am like I'm happy to be her caretaker, like that is what I'm here for. But of course I'm always going to worry. And so that's what I've been, yeah, dealing with in the background for over 2 years. And I think it is good to talk about. Like,
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to talk about it because it's a heavy burden to carry alone and just be like, oh yeah, it's just like, and just dealing with some stuff. Like, it's not fun. Like, I've always been an open person. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not fun to just sit with it by yourself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's not. It can be toxic. Yeah. It. You're gonna make me
Yeah.
cry.
Oh,
Yeah. Wow. There's so many things to kind of think through and ask. But first, I want to say again, thank you for sharing, because I think that my hope is that as more people hear these stories, that they'll be encouraged to find people who are like-minded and willing to be open and share, because we keep all that stuff bottled up in, and
Yeah.
I've experienced that firsthand for a number of years. Kept in a bunch of stuff, like father dying from suicide, and has some of his sisters, and health stuff, and like I held in for so long, and it would come out as like the meanest anger. And some people race from a place of anger, which I haven't really decided how I truly feel on that. But all of that aside, I think it's good to talk through things and find community in our story and in our journey, because no matter what you've experienced, the hardest thing you've ever experienced is the hardest thing that you've ever experienced, and nobody's meant to hold all that in. And I don't think so. For all of this stuff that you and your family are going through, how have you, or I guess, what have you learned through therapy? Let's go there, if you don't mind me asking. Like, what tools or what things do you kind of draw to give you strength and keep you grounded, to give you some semblance of peace? And I'm not saying you have it all figured out. I don't expect that at all, but I'm curious to know like what you've been learning.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is like sometimes a daily battle. But actually I think one of the biggest things was actually understanding my parents' relationship a little bit better. I think like actually picking out, kind of my growing up, and that helped me actually, my dad worked a lot when I was younger, and to the point that like people would always be like, oh, like, are your parents together? Because I wouldn't talk about my dad much. And actually through this, we have probably the closest we've ever been. And I understand him a lot more. And now I understand a lot of my own traits that come from him. And I think that was actually super cool, because like, I think if you grow up in an area where you're like, oh, but my dad's a workaholic, that can be really toxic when you get older. And I have this new, outlook on actually what was happening in my life, growing up, and actually seeing him show up for my mom, and, seeing just it, that kind of opened up a different life perspective for me. And I think changed me a little bit, just to be like, oh, like this part of me comes from this person, and this comes from that. And so I see things a lot more differently. But yeah, that's like a totally different aspect to just like, I think one of the hardest things was being able to allow myself to continue on my own journey. I think that's why, like, again, like I applaud like Gustav, for example, for continuing on like such a successful journey when for sure so much was happening at home. And you have to work through that and be okay with it, and understand that if you just shut your whole life off to, be this other person, then you're going to end up being unhappy, and maybe even a little bit like, just not happy that you stayed true to your own journey and your life and your future. And I have to remind myself that I can't get caught up too much with what's happening at home on a day-to-day basis, that I do have a life myself, and I have to remember to live that, because if I don't, then I'm going to come out of this and be like, oh, what do I do now? Like, so
Yeah.
And just kind of being like at peace with more things. And I think fortunately, I have been good at, like, I always blank on the word, and I'm going to blank on it again, but like pushing things aside to get something done. There's a word for it, and I just like
pushing
can't remember.
aside something that should be done. Procrastination?
No. Like pushing aside feelings to like get a workout done.
Oh,
when you like kind of like bury something, and then you're like, okay, like I can't let this affect this.
I don't know what word.
Starts with a C.
Compartmentalization? Compression?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, compartmentalizing.
Okay.
Yeah, so like taking that, like these emotions and putting them into a box and
Mm-hmm.
saying, I can't let that come into like my training because if I let it come into training, then the workout can fall apart. And
Yeah.
that was happening a lot in the beginning. I was, like really stressed, really worried, really upset, really emotional, and then I would completely break down in a workout. And so and I think like swimmers, like we spend a lot of time in our heads just thinking on stuff and sitting on stuff. And I think that's where part of, my strength of compartmentalizing things helps. It's not good to do all the time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I think remembering how to do that in certain situations and saying like, okay, be present with yourself. It's okay and also be okay to be present with yourself. Because if you think it's not okay, then you're just going to have so much guilt
Mm.
about that. And I think being okay with living my life and doing what I need to do has probably been one of the biggest factors. And not feeling guilty for living your life
Mm.
while also some really hard things are still happening because there is space to feel both, like 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have to
Yeah.
agree. If we
I
can't
think
fill
those
up
are the
our
biggest
own,
ones.
yeah. If we can't fill up our own cup, it's like we have nothing to give to anyone else. And I just want to touch on a couple of other things you said too, because it really it struck a chord with me. I went to this 3-day focused retreat on like self growth. I guess we can call it that. It was just really
Mm.
a time to come and like whatever issue you wanted to work on, put it out in the open, look at it, be uncomfortable with it, and um, that whole weekend, there were so many profound experiences I had that it left me just kind of shaken in a good way to like really, like you said, figuring out, oh,
Yeah.
who am I really? And on that specific question, one thing of the exercises that they had us do was basically sit down, write a list of all of the negative traits that we feel like we took from our parents or just negative traits they had in general. And I could come up with so many. And then I had to write down the positive ones, which was a little more tough. And it wasn't as long as of a list in the beginning, to be honest. But I was sitting apart from someone who they
Hmm.
were holding space for me. And for the father stuff, because like I said, my dad, took his own life when I was 16.
Mm.
I said out loud
Yeah.
these traits that he held that I also had. And it was the first time that I like thanked him for kind of being who he was and what he gave me through the, short 16 years that I had him. And I wept like a baby because it was the first time in my life that I really like took ownership for him being my dad and giving me something good that I really didn't think was that I could have. And I came back and told my wife that story as we were eating for the first day, and I just started bawling in the restaurant. And she was like, "Wow, you really were
Yeah.
changed from this because you've been so hard for so long." So like that was a really cool thing.
Yeah.
And, and then one last thing you said, because you said your view of your dad has changed so much because you've seen how he has been there for your mom, which I think in a lot of ways is him being there for you. I don't think there's anything more powerful,
Yeah.
especially for girls, guys too, but especially for a young girl to see their dad love their mom like that. That almost brings me to tears because whenever that's how boys and girls learn how to treat their spouse when they get older and the traits they're looking for. Because even when our parents show
Yeah.
us like the worst sides of themselves, for some reason, whenever we grow up and we start looking for a partner, we'll gravitate towards some of those toxic traits. But to see your dad do that for your mom now and that you have that is like such a special thing. That's just really, I wish more people had that
Yeah.
opportunity. So, yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely took because I never thought my parents had a good relationship growing up. And
Mm,
that was like my biggest fear. They would bicker a lot and everything. And like, I think like I didn't see enough of them as a couple, I think, like
yeah.
growing up, maybe because I was also so busy. But to see how they work together now, and especially for my mom to say, like, I don't know that, she was like, I don't think many men would do what he is doing for me now. Like, and I think that is really powerful to have somebody that I thought was almost like disconnected to be that impactful for her, especially is, yeah, it's a totally different viewpoint that I had my whole life.
Yeah.
So it is, yeah, super, yeah, hard times, but also, yeah, cool, I guess, like realizations and kind of seeing more, like like you said, like opening yourself up to these other things that your parents might be.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious to know from all of these things that you're experiencing. I mean, these are some really heavy life experiences that you're able to have. And, um, you're talking about some of the skills you're developing and being able to compartmentalize whenever it's appropriate. And then, going through therapy, working through hard things, doing hard things physically, emotionally, spiritually. After triathlon, like after a world of sport, do you have any inclination or thought for what you'd want to do post that world?
Um, I like got into, well, I mean, I was actually hired into the triathlon industry like right when I graduated from college.
Oh, wow.
Um, and yeah, so it was kind of a weird, I mean, I had gone to school like studying history and political science, and I wanted to teach and coach. I mean, at the top end goal was like if I wanted to go to law school to be a judge. Like I didn't want to be a lawyer. I like law and order, I like doing the right thing. And so like being a judge sounded way cooler to me. Definitely would not be able to go down that path because I'm so far removed from it now. But
Hmm.
so that was like my original career path, that I had gotten into triathlon just like my senior, in between my junior and senior year of college. And I think, of course, with the swim background, and I also ran cross country in college as well. And I had run growing up. And so I had two things already. And so I had early success in kind of just like, regional sprints and Olympics. And so I got hired, yeah, right out of college to work at Cobb Cycling, the saddle company, to like have a women's division and kind of study the women's market and see what women needed. And that actually brought me a lot of joy to help women feel more comfortable getting into a sport. And I think also like, I think sport gives us like this individuality that maybe sometimes, especially as women, if like, they identify as a mother, and a wife, and they kind of lose a bit of that identity. And I think having sport is actually a really good thing just to do for themselves.
Hmm.
And so I really enjoyed helping other women. And now I've worked in the triathlon industry for so long, I like struggle to see what I would do outside of sport, but I know I want to be like impactful in some other way to women, to have their own sphere, to be comfortable in the sphere of, having something for them. And I think that excites me to, like, again, I said at the beginning, like figuring out that it, like, once I got back to myself, I'm like, oh, well, this is why I really love it. Cause I want to be impactful to other women, to have like, so they can be their own individual self and kind of get themselves out and have something for them and be confident in that.
Hmm.
And um so I had, right now, to be honest, like since I had like a couple of years of not really chasing after my own dreams and aspirations racing, that is like kind of my forefront goal, is get back to that person who trains hard and races hard.
Hmm.
That's like goal number one for me. Secondary is hopefully inspire people along the way, and then figure out career path after that. It
Yeah.
sounds horrible to not have a goal, but I
I
think
don't think
whenever
so.
go through the trauma of like life, and you kind of like you forget to build a career plan because it's, almost feels like life or death in this situation. So now it's like, okay, do something for me, and then I can figure out how to live the rest of my career life after.
Yeah.
I think commentating would be fun. I say a lot of stupid things, but I
Don't
think
we
it would be
all?
exciting. I
Yeah.
do talk a
No.
lot, so I
Yeah.
could fill up 8 hours of space.
Yeah. No, I think you could totally do it. And I want to affirm a little bit. I don't think that you're lacking any career path. I mean, I think that you're like you've got some sponsors, like you've got this professional career, you're moving forward. It seems like you're able to make it work financially. So you've definitely got a plan.
Barely.
But yeah, it's interesting because I used to listen to this podcast called Masters of Scale. It's a business podcast by the guy who started LinkedIn. And he always talked about this concept of, whenever you're starting a business, it's like jumping off a cliff with all the parts to build an airplane. And then you're building the airplane as you're rushing toward the ground and you're trying to, put it together before you hit the ground. And I really like that lifestyle. I've always since really
Yeah.
being really young, enjoyed the entrepreneurial, get out there and figure it out as it comes. It's not for everyone, and I don't think that it's supposed
Yeah.
to last
No,
for
it's not.
any super extended period of time. But it's definitely one method of getting somewhere, and I think you've got a pretty good head on your shoulders, and it seems like you have really good friends, and obviously a family that loves each other. So I think that the inspiration part is continuing, probably where you don't even realize it. It's always interesting for me when I have talked to people, when I've gone to thank them for being like crucial in my life, for it's usually a very small thing that they said in passing that like really deeply impacted me and like left that voice like in my head where I've kind of recalled it over time. So I guess what I'm saying is, in all that you're doing, I guarantee there's lots of little instances where you've been an inspiration to people and they don't, you may not even think like, oh, that was an inspiring thing that they did, but then they have that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you consider yourself to be entrepreneurial? Because I could see you starting something.
And um I feel like I could be. I mean, I've in the jobs that I've worked, I've done a little bit of everything. I've done Yeah, I mean, because I've worked at small companies, and so I have had to do everything from, you know, just like small mundane tasks to project managing certain things or product building. And um so I feel like potentially that could be something. You know, but I don't know what it would be, to be
Yeah.
honest. So maybe.
Yeah. Commentating too is also really awesome. So, whichever one.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Um, do you know Matt Lieto? I'm sure you know who he is.
Yeah, because he actually coaches my good friend Lisa. I think you have met Lisa.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
me and Lisa Becaris are really close, and she's coached by him. So she's told me a lot about him and kind of, I mean, he's very also like free spirited.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, yeah. And he does commentating, doesn't he? I believe. And if so, I'm supposed to have him on the podcast. He's really hard to nail down on a time. We've been working on it for a while. But when I get him, we'll have to introduce you guys and be like, hey, new commentator here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So he does. But like I said, Lisa always says he's always off on these like mountain crazy
He is, yeah.
adventures and stuff, like at just random times. So I can totally see that nailing down a recording time with him is hard.
Yeah. So, for you, at the forefront of your mind, what's occupying the space that has to do with like where you're trying to get to in the future? I know we talked about training. We've talked about kind of getting back to that place where you're enjoying and performing in training. Is that what's taking up the primary space, or is there anything else in there?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the primary, yeah, is like working a lot on myself, and whether that's, emotionally or physically. And And like talking to my coach was like, oh, you've put in like the 65 days of work actually since we started working together. And I was like, holy crap, it's been like 65 days where I haven't gone through a couple of weeks and then just like had to take a week down. And I think I'm finally getting to the point of getting to a baseline of training again, like being able to actually like train to train and um having more fun when I'm going out and doing things and seeing things more and instead of just kind of like being shying away from some work or like we again had talked about at the beginning like oh well I think I need to be here and I am so far from the trajectory of where I was going in like 2019 where at the end of that year it was like things are going to move up quickly and
Mm,
then yeah the world shut down and then everything else happened and I keep I had found myself always like, well, I should be here. Well, I should be here, but I'm not. So I need to just be here with myself
yeah.
and start from this point. And I think I am actually finally solidly in that place and beginning to move the needle forward from that spot again. Um, and just like, and being happy again with the process. Like, I don't think I've really much enjoyed the process over the last couple of years just with everything and I went through a bout of overtraining and yeah like coming back from that was also hard and then yeah so it's just enjoying the process again because I'm just showing up day to day to day and not getting too caught up with myself and being more confident in changing things that I need to
Mm.
and like taking more ownership of my day-to-day life and not relying on somebody else to do it and being confident that I know what's good for Rachel. Like at the end of the day I've been an athlete for so long like I do know my body better than anybody else. So I need to find, it's been a lot of work on confidence, remembering that I'm confident in knowing what is good for me and being not budging from that.
Yeah. If so, a lot of people struggle with finding that confidence to believe and like listen to the body, I guess is one way that it's said more popularly as well. Um, if someone is
Yeah.
struggling with that, how would you give them advice to figure that out to like have that confidence? Because it's one thing to say it, and it seems like there's so many things that you have to do and kind of go through mentally and practice physically to come to that place where you obviously know what your body's saying, but then like having the confidence, like you said, to execute on that thought and belief, to tell your coach, hey, today is not the day for this, or hey, I think I can take more for this, or whatever. How does someone get to that place?
For sure, I think number one is evaluating the relationships around them and seeing what language may be like being used because I think sometimes that can be, whether it's intentional or not, like partners and coaches could even hinder that. And I think it is practice. And knowing that, okay, like, you know, this is what I'm feeling right now. Like maybe it doesn't work, but for example, say, Andre he likes to do all of his workouts in the morning, knock them all out. And sometimes I will do a workout in the morning and want to wait, two workouts in the morning and want to wait to do and have like a pretty obscure time and by his standards, like later in the afternoon. And it's like, I don't know how you can do that, but it's like, because that's not how you work, but it is how I work and it is working. So, but sometimes you do that and it doesn't work and then you say, okay, well maybe I need to change something. But I think just practicing that, but also being like, okay, maybe you have a point, but let me do it my way first. And then if it doesn't work my way, then I'll try it a different way.
Hmm.
And I think you build confidence from making choices on your own first, and saying like, I really, and there's, of course, something to always to be said, like, I don't really feel that great. I don't want to start this workout, but you need to start it anyway. It's not necessarily that, like, because it's just understanding, okay, I think this is what my body needs. Like, I actually need to like really get the fuel in, get the rest in, and then start again.
Hmm.
Um, or just like understanding the day or waking up and saying, ooh, like, I think this might be a little bit much. Let me start it, see where I'm going, and then change things around if I need to. But I think people are so scared to change their plan.
Mm.
And I was always so scared to change my plan. And I just kept trucking and trucking and trucking. And then you end up crashing and having to take more time out instead of, okay, I'm not going to just keep trucking through this. Like, yes, I can. I'm a good athlete. I'm a strong person. I'm mentally strong. But sometimes you have to say, okay, it's okay to not like have that I'm stronger than this, I can keep doing this even when I'm tired. Like, it is a good mentality, but you can't have it 100% of the time. And
Yeah.
just being confident and knowing that you'll still get to the end goal as long as you're listening to yourself.
Yeah. Listening to yourself is so important. It seems to be something
Yeah.
that's being talked more and more about here as of late. At least I guess I can say that a little naively because I've only been a part of this sport for like really 3.5, 4 years. But it seems to be something that's being talked
That's
about
pretty
more.
solid,
Enjoying
though.
the process, being present in the moment, all of these kind of buzz things. But I think it's good to keep talking about them because we all got to kind of muck through it to figure out what that actually truly means. But I have
Yeah.
one other, I guess, kind of bigger question for you. So we've talked about a lot of stuff, some heavy stuff, like with your mom specifically, and just the death that I guess has touched other points of your life. For someone out there who right now is maybe listening to this and they're like, well, my life's not like that. It's pretty good. I haven't been through it. Something may happen to them where they end up losing someone tragically, or some big life event happens that just kind of knocks them upside the head. For you, like you said, you went and started going to therapy, and I would be a huge advocate for that. How would that person go about figuring that out, or when is it time to figure that out? And how do you come to a place where you can accept, like, yeah, this is what I need? Like, how did you kind of come to that place, and maybe give some advice to someone who may end up needing that same kind of a plan?
Yeah. I think, and also it reminded me, like, one of the biggest things through my therapy process was understanding that I cannot make my mom want to do XYZ for herself.
Hmm.
You just can't. It does, you can't make anybody want to do something because it may be better for them. It really truly does have to come from yourself. And maybe that takes hitting a bottom that you thought that you wouldn't hit, or um just accepting that that's what needs to be done. And I think, yeah, you just have to, it has to come from within. That is what is the hardest part. Everybody around you could say like, hey, I think you need to talk to somebody, but until you open yourself up to the idea of it, then it it is a lot harder. um I think it becomes a task that probably won't work.
Hmm.
If somebody else is saying you should have, you need to go do this therapy, yeah, I think you need to work on it, but any people could tell you that all day long, but unless you have that intrinsic motivation to help yourself to do it, and just, I think they just need to look into themselves and say, do I want to do this? And also, why am I doing it? Am I doing it as a place of, trying to understand or just like work through it? Or, you have to really be willing to go through some crap,
Hmm.
and seeing things a lot differently. But I think I think that is the good thing about, my experience with the therapy was, okay, like, and I was just, because you let it might come to the point that it consumes your work, it consumes your, relationships, and you don't want to have that eating at you. So if it's something that you're thinking about, I would just say try. But again, you have to sit there and understand that these people, they're going to probably challenge you, but in a way that is for you, for you
Mm.
to be able to find what you need and be able to move on and grow, internally. So, um, like I said, it's so hard. I think everybody could benefit from some sort of therapy,
Hmm.
and probably 75% of those people will say, oh, I don't need it and I can deal with it. But I think one of the biggest, like, people don't want to do it because it has like some sort of stigma. It's like, oh, I'm fine. I can deal with it. I'm mentally strong. Yeah, of course we're mentally strong. Like,
Hmm.
I think everybody, athlete or not, is mentally strong in some way or another. But it's a different, I just see it as like you kind of just open up a different light. And I think that's what's cool about it, is that, you're taking something and thinking about it differently, or seeing yourself differently, and then learning also tools to help you deal with XYZ so it's not consuming your life.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's interesting with therapists or anyone you're talking to who is in a position of counsel. A good counselor or therapist is the person who knows how to ask a question that solicits a response internally that really shifts the perspective on how we see something. That's how I've learned. I've seen so many different therapists and had some good ones, had some bad ones, and it's kind of like dating. You have to shop around to figure out which one kind of works um,
Yeah.
most. But yeah, that was a
Yeah.
thing that definitely hit home, and it's so true what you said about being willing and being willing to try it. Because when I went to this 3 day
Mhm.
experience, there were people from all ages. From I think the youngest was like 20, maybe 18, and the oldest was in their 80s. And there's people who were in that audience who were 50,
Yeah.
60, 70, and 80 who have never worked through anything. And I watched a
Yeah.
woman, I won't say her name because it doesn't matter, but she basically was telling a story of how she was molested and she believed it was her fault when she was a kid. And it was so hard for her to accept
Yeah.
and believe and say that it was not her fault. I don't know if anybody's ever seen Good Will Hunting, but like it's such a good movie because when have you seen that movie?
It's been years,
Okay, well, there's that
but
scene
I have.
where, yeah, Robin Williams is basically trying to tell, I forget his name, the actor, that it's not his fault, and like you have to hit the chisel on that rock several times before it breaks, and then it breaks, and it's like, okay, finally you can like release that
Yeah.
burden. So yeah, great advice. Being able to be willing to try and go through some crap. I think that's really
Yeah.
that's some great advice. So thank you so much, and thanks for coming on and for sharing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a lot that you've shared in an hour, but I know we haven't even really scratched the surface of all of who you are. But I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing the story, and I know it's gonna be a bright light for a lot of people. So thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me on and letting me cry through a therapy session here.
Yeah.
But I think it was important for people to actually understand and not sit on it and just kind of be vague to my like followers or whatever, and just actually have people see me and everything
Hmm.
that I have to deal with. And hopefully it helps other people in understanding. And like I said, there's people at my level, there's people at every day. There's Gustavine, the world champion, who had to deal with it as well. I think it is, these things have a bigger impact on our lives than we want to believe. And again, that's why therapy helps, because whether you think it's not affecting you or not, it probably is somewhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just grateful that we were able to have this chat, and yeah, hope maybe we can do it again in the future and dive into a totally different realm.
Yes, 100%. 100%. Thank you again so much to Rachel for coming on and sharing from her heart the things that she has been going through lately. We all have a story. And no matter if you're a professional athlete, a business owner, or a 9-to-5er, or any of those things, your story does matter. And it really is important, I think, for us to share those stories with each other because it gives us a deeper level of understanding and care for each other. And ultimately, I think the goal of life and the meaning of life is to share love at a deeper level so that we all can all be loved and know that we are loved and to love others. So again, thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on the show. When I asked her in the end, basically how to do life and how to make it through hard times, because we're all almost destined to touch and taste death before we pass on from this world. She gave us some advice, and basically it came down to be willing to try and be willing to go through some crap. You got to go through hard stuff in order to temper that blade to be able to slice through some of the hard things of life. If you made it to this point in the episode, just want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here and for listening to my spiel week in and week out. If you are listening or watching on any of the platforms that you know exist to man, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, if you wouldn't mind giving a follow, giving a subscribe, liking, commenting, sharing, any and all of those things, especially giving reviews, it really helps to continue to grow this podcast. And I really appreciate that because this has been a very amazing experience for me. So if you also want to sign up for our newsletter, you can do that at the stupidquestions.show website. There's a link at the top right of the website to sign up for that newsletter. And yeah, I think that's it. I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for being here, and we will talk to you later.